Ira Kraft had a profound impact on my life. I will always be indebted to him as my mentor in so many ways. Ira was from South Carolina, his wife Betty from Missouri. They lived in Atlanta after they married before World War II. Then Ira was sent overseas in the war, and when he left Betty, he said, "If two return, I will be one." Later, Ira would be one of those soldiers who invaded Normandy during D-Day, and he was captured and was a prisoner of war in Europe for 15 months. When he returned, he was one of the first soldiers who had been a prisoner of war to return to the States. Afterwards, he was involved in a career as vice president of a major shoe company. Eventually, the shoe company transferred Ira and Betty to Boston, and they lived in Massachusetts for several years. During that time, they were members of a small church which met in a Grange Hall, and they saw the struggles of small churches which were just beginning. Ira and Betty often said to each other, if someone would go back and tell the large churches in the South about the needs of the struggling churches here in the North, they would become involved. Finally, the company was ready to transfer Ira away, and in the middle of the night at age 49, Ira woke Betty up and said, "Betty, I think God wants us to be the couple to go back and tell the churches." She said, "If you're sure, I'm with you all the way," and turned over and went back to sleep. The next Monday, Ira went into the president of the company and resigned. The president called Betty privately and said, "Betty, I know Ira's under a lot of stress. Everything's been really intense. You get him away, get all the counseling that he needs. We'll pay for it. We have great plans for him." Ira said he never looked back because he knew this is what God was leading. So he and Betty moved back to Atlanta at age 49 with a set of slides and their story, all they had. One night, Ira's pastor at Dunwoody Church asked him to share on a Wednesday night about their experience in the North. Ira said that after he had shared, most everybody who came out said, "I know you enjoyed New England, the seafood, the Four Seasons," but that was the extent of the conversation. The next day, Cecil Day called Ira and said, "Ira, when can you come over and tell me more about New England?" Now, Cecil was the founder of Days Inn. He also had developed several other very successful businesses before he developed Days Inn. So when he said, "Can you come over and tell me more tomorrow about New England?" Ira said, "Cecil, when can you go with me to New England and see it firsthand?" Cecil said, "I can go next Wednesday." Ira said, "I'll meet you at the plane with the tickets." So he met him, took him to New England, and they stayed for, I think it was 10 days, in the homes of individuals. And Ira said that at the end of every conversation with a pastor or a lay person from a struggling church, Cecil would say to that person, "What is your greatest, most immediate need?" And if it was $300 or $400, or if it was a couple of $1,000s, Cecil would commit it on the spot. By the time they returned back to Atlanta, and this was in the 1960s, Cecil had committed $50,000 on that first trip. On the way home, Cecil said to Ira, "The Lord has really blessed me," and said, "I've always given a personal tithe, but recently the Lord has been convicting me about giving a corporate tithe." He said, I own 11 companies, and if I can get all 11 of those companies to agree to give a corporate tithe, would you help me set up a foundation?" Ira said, "Cecil, I have full time to do it." And so that's how the Cecil B. Day Foundation came into being. And on this earth, we will never know the impact of that foundation because it has been so tremendous. Ira also said to Betty, if God really blesses us, we should have 15 good years to give to ministry to help the churches at age 49. Actually, Ira lived to be age 80. And so in the 31 years, by the time he died, he had helped to start 400 churches in all of New England, churches of very varied denominations. He had had such an impact. He served as a trustee for Gordon Conwell Seminary, and as one of the people who's had the major impact on the quiet revival that is going on in Boston and New England at the moment. And so seeing Ira and seeing the impact that he had during the last 31 years of his life following retirement was an incentive to me to take early retirement, which I did at 59 and a half, in order to work full-time in ministry, but to have more flexibility. And I can never thank God enough for Ira and for the impact that he had as my mentor. Now, Ira is the one who coined a word which is gaining popularity in academic circles today, and it is the word net weaving. Ira refused to use the word networking because he said networking sounds as if you're only touching each other. But when God brings people together, he weaves their lives into a whole new pattern that did not exist before, and that is net weaving. And so that's what we're trying to do through the Commonwealth Compassion Bridge, is be used of God to weave people together, organizations together, and see the impact that can come through being woven into a much larger pattern than ourselves, and to see what God can do through that. So Ira's word lives on, as do his actions and his life in so many churches in New England and in many other parts of the country.